Hi, I'm Mike,
And I'm Dave.
and we're here to talk about the Myers-Briggs personality types, which we love so much.
With every fiber and atom of our being.
Yeah, that's right. And this is a continuation of talking about how Dave and I, I as an ENFP, and Dave as an INFJ, exemplify some of the values and orientations of being an NF idealist. And so, Dave, what I want to ask now is about empathy.
Oh,
And
yes.
your experiences of empathy. NFs are known for empathy and experiences with empathy. And I'd like you to speak about your experiences with empathy, both positive and negative.
Well, positive first. I have very strong empathetic feelings, especially for my friends when they're down or they're struggling with something. Say, for example, relationships, when they're feeling down about a breakup, or if they're just feeling down about like stagnating with their life. They're not sure where to go. I try to help them out. I try to get them to motivated. I do the best of my abilities without me myself getting depressed on top of that. So I feel that's a positive aspect of the empathy. But the negative aspect, as I said before, could lead to depression on my part because I feel like I'm not doing enough to help them, and I feel like them not getting out of their depression because of my efforts. I feel like I'm failing them, so that's a huge downer for me. But I try not to blame myself really. I do anyway, but I try not to. So yes, how about you?
Um, I think one experience that I have with empathy that is, this is common to all the NFs, is that I've had empathy stop me in my tracks. And I think that's one thing that separates the NFs from the other three categories. Because I don't see that happening with any of the others. Where you have a moment of empathy with somebody, and it's usually about their suffering, too. It's always about that. But you have a moment of empathy with somebody that's so strong that everything about you comes to a halt. And you have to stop and do something.
Yeah.
And you have to do something for that person, or you have to do something in some other context, maybe even run and hide, but you have to do something. So I've had moments of empathy where it's completely changed my behavior in every sense, not just behavior, but my orientation, my cognition, my plan. So I was thinking and acting one way, and then I experienced somebody, and I had empathy for them, and then everything altered.
Yeah.
And went in this whole other direction. The empathy was so strong that I couldn't keep continuing in the path that I was going in, whatever that was. I've had those experiences with it the most, or the strongest. I should say the most, but those are very strong empathic experiences, and that's sort of both good and bad. I think in a lot of ways. I mean, it's good in a sense because it allows us to change and do things, and I do think that all NFs have that moment where empathy. You have a moment of empathy that's forced upon you that makes you change or do something, or because you're feeling it so intensely strongly.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, and not to speak for you, but a classic INFJ response is to go and hide and
Oh, yes.
and retreat
Yes.
because it's so strong and so powerful that you can't take it.
Quite often.
Yes. For ENFJs, and we have an ENFJ friend. And ENFJs are always very concerned about appearance and what they're doing, but even though they're like that, they're NFs. And I know when our ENFJ friend is having a moment of empathy because I always catch it in his eyes.
Yeah.
He has this look in his eyes like, oh crap, somebody's hurting, like you could, and then he composes himself. It's very funny.
There's something about
Yes.
the ENFJ eyes.
Oh God, yeah. We're gonna have a whole video just on the ENFJ eyes, just on that. There's something in that. You could tell an ENFJ from their eyes, just like you tell an INFJ from their eyes. But the ENFJs have that stare. I don't know what it is. But our but that's when I notice he has this. He will try to maintain his composure and be cool, but his eyes always tell the story of empathy.
Eyes are the windows of the personality type.
Yeah, really, they really are. For me, if you want to know I'm having empathy, is when I'm looking flustered. When I'm just like, oh God, because I know that the empathy has hit me, and now I have these NF values that I have to live by, even though I still want to do something that's totally selfish and gluttonous, or, or whatever. I won't be going on that path because my empathy and my values won't let me. So anytime you see me and I'm like, oh, like that, I'm actually having a moment of empathy because I know that now I'm going to have to take a series of actions that I wasn't going to previously in my thinking. So that's my experience with empathy. Next, an important topic, and of course, Dave, we never talk about this. So, is romance and soulmates.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Dave and I never, this topic never comes up.
Well, if anyone except us. When it's just us, we always talk about it.
No, I know, it's true. Actually, Dave and I talk about this all the time.
Yes.
But
now we open it up to the public forum.
That's right.
Yes.
So NFs have one of the claims is that NFs yearn for romance, and that we yearn. So we'll talk about romance first, then soulmates.
Mm-hmm.
We yearn for romance. What does it mean to you to hear that the yearning for romance, and how does it manifest in you as an INFJ?
Very much. So, very, very much. I can recall when I was a kid idealizing every crush I would have on a girl. Like, okay, let's just say, for example, like an SP would want to just, I don't know, have sex with, say, a girl that they crush on. Like, I want to have sex with this girl and blah, blah, blah. Whereas sex would come up, but it would mostly be like a long-term thing. It would just be like, oh man, we're gonna like admit our love to each other, and then we're gonna. Oh, I thought the video froze. All right, so we're gonna admit our love to each other, and then we're gonna get married, and we're gonna have kids, and then we're gonna grow old, and we're gonna sit on rocking chairs and still admit how much we love each other.
Oh, that's not some bullshit NF idealism. Holy cow!
It's so corny. I can see all the SJs wanting to be like.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the SJs want it too, but they're not happy. They're not happy about it. It's work being on this rocking chair with you.
Oh.
It's a duty.
They would have to make the rocking chair for it.
That's right.
But yeah, like that would always happen even when I was young, and it still happens today. Even like when I'm kind of like interested in a girl, I'll still go on flights of fantasy about like having this like Shakespearean romance with them, and it's fantastic. I'd have to say. And the whole soulmate thing I think ties into that as well.
Sure.
Someone you bond with cosmically, and it's destiny, sort of. Well, I say sort of, but I know, yeah, definitely destiny. So what about you, Mike?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the thing about being a kid. Now, that's very true, I think, of NFs. And first of all the types. So my first advice for any type, whether we're talking about the 4 categories or the 16 types, is that if you found your right personality type, if when you read the personality profiles on whatever, websites, whatever, you read the personality profiles and you can see yourself as a child acting this way, and you have memories from childhood that fit with the profile, then you found the right profile. And that's true about being an ENFP and an NF. When I read the NF stuff or the ENFP stuff, I can see things I did as a kid. As well, and I was obsessed with romance and love from an earliest age. I used to play a sort of a Dungeons and Dragons outer space game that I made up with a friend when I was a kid. We had spaceships and characters, just geek stuff, and I don't know if he was an SP. I think he was an SP. So he would sort of we would sort of plan out these stories that the characters go through in the game, and his stories are always about officers on the edge fighting a bureaucracy that just wouldn't understand. That's what all his were. And mine, what do you think mine are all about? Love and romance and characters separated by light years and trying to find each other in space, and it was all about like space love. Like every one of them was like space romance, the whole time. So it's funny that that trait in the NF goes right back to childhood.
Yeah.
And I remember having idealist crushes on girls like in the 4th grade, just being like, oh wow, thinking about it. Yeah, absolutely. So romance is a very big thing for us, and it's kind of different because, for example, in the same system. Let's go back to SJs for a minute. SJs don't yearn for romance; they yearn to belong. They want to be part of something, a group, a family, an organization, and that's not as important to the NF. We don't necessarily have to belong to a larger group, a larger institution, a larger family. We always feel alienated anyway, on some level. But feeling that you belong to a person, to an individual, I think is something we all do sort of yearn for very deeply sometimes. And I can tell you this too, as scary or depressing as this may be, as you get older, that doesn't change at all. There's a 20-year age difference between us, but I'm still embedded in that romance, in that NF romance, like I was when I was your age, and when I was playing the little space games,
Yeah.
as a child.
So does it get stronger with time, or do you feel it's strong enough when you're younger, and then it just carries out?
I don't find that the strength of it has changed at all over my life, for better or for worse. And sometimes it's for better, and sometimes though it's for worse because as you get older, you're a little more wounded by life, and you're a little more scarred by life, and you're a little more jaded by life, and I don't want to freak out all the other NFs, but I'm going to anyway. You sort of it can become a source of depression because you start thinking and I think this sometimes, that this romance is not going to happen. It's too idealistic. It's too ridiculous. I'm not going to live this life. There's no way anyone could live this life, so I'll forever be empty or forever be yearning for it and never actually having it. It's in the and that's not necessarily true, but it's just that what happens is you're taking the idealism and you're comparing it to decades of life and hardship and things happening and relationships gone wrong, or even things that we all experience, like death or whatever, because you've had those experiences by the time you're middle age. So I feel it the same strength as I've always felt it, but sometimes it's a source of great hope and strength, and sometimes it's a source of sadness. But I think that's true of an NF of any age, really, if I think about it.
Yeah.
All right, now you mentioned soulmates. So let's talk about soulmates for a minute. What are your views about soulmates? Is this a load of crap?
No, it is not a load of crap.
Not if you're an NF.
Yes, because it exists here and here, and throughout your body, and this whole thing called an aura. And if there's a soul, it's there too. That's a little ghost thing. It's like Casper.
Great. People have watched this. These two guys said my soulmate's Casper. What are they talking about?
Well, who cares? Anyway, soulmates exist, and I don't know. How would you go about describing what a soulmate is, or how you feel about one?
Sure. I think there's two things I want to communicate about soulmates, and I think this is very helpful. One is that soulmates are somebody who you can share at your deepest level with, and they share with you at their deepest level. So it's not so much soulmates in terms of some kind of destiny. That could be true to an extent, I guess, but not really. That's not how I think about it. I think about it as a person who, because of whatever the way they are and whatever the way you are, you can share with them at a deeper level than you could other people. The other thing to say about soulmates is that soulmates exist beyond romantic relationships. That there's many different types of soulmates running in many different types of directions. Your soulmate is not necessarily your lover, or because I've had lovers who weren't soulmates. And I have soulmates who aren't lovers. Dave and I are soulmates to a certain degree.
Oh, yes.
So there's certain soulmates run in multiple directions and multiple dimensions. It's not just all romance. So there's sort of a disconnect. And with that, we're done, Dave.
All right. But first, before I go, I'd like to open up to you guys. What do you think about romance, soulmates, and all that mushy stuff? Tell us. Leave comments, video responses. It's all good.
We're over 15 minutes.
Take it easy.